Sam Nave here for Power Rankings and Team Report for the Season 7 of the VGC Trainer School Draft League, abbreviated to VTSDL, so that's an acronym inside of another acronym. So this time we're going to be playing a restricted draft where you get stronger, where the gimmick is that you get stronger Pokemon for picking shitty restricteds. The long and short of it is that you two can get Indeedee, but Calyrex Shadow cannot. I'll link the document in the description on the off chance you're watching this and aren't already familiar with the concept or in the draft itself, but I expect everyone watching this to be in that draft, so I'm not going to explain it further. Now, I have played maybe 10 Showdown Best of 3s on Reg G in my lifetime, not even tournament sets. I do not like this format at all, and I have largely retreated to draft while it's been ongoing, so I'm kind of out of my element here, and I think that could impact my judgment a little bit. Maybe I don't know what certain restricteds want as much, because I think they obviously form archetypes and have very unique needs that may only appear if you play them, but that should only affect the top tier restricteds, right? And there aren't too many of those, and they're also lacking their best tools because of the thing I said earlier. So maybe I'm fine. Maybe I defended myself very well. But making a draft plan for this is pretty hard. So I had 5 plans, most of which I hated, and the one I eventually decided on running is Dialga, which was my second plan. It was also the least developed one. I only got 2 Pokemon into it before deciding it was stupid. But with the way tiering turned out, it made Dialga look a lot better than I thought it would be. So I'm going to go through these picks from top to bottom, explaining why I picked all of them, as opposed to going in pick order, just because at least my restricted plan reflects on the restricted at pretty much every step except for the last few picks. So it would make more sense to go that way than do pick order. But when we get to Dialga itself, there's not much to talk about. He's just kind of a boring static, excellent defensive typing, doesn't have any special setup options, no Calm Mind, no Meat, Nasty Plot, but does have lots of coverage, Flamethrower, Earth Power, or a Spear, and does have half of an ability, which is better than what some of these other guys get. There's not too much to say about him, besides that I want to try running a balanced Trick Room thing rather than hard Trick Room like I usually do, which to me means when I play Trick Room, I always lead Trick Room, and with this, I might put Trick Room in the back, or I might switch out and then set Trick Room. But working with Dialga's half an ability is Ursaluna, who needs no introduction or explanation. Also, might to introduce or explain that Dialga has telepathy, so you can Earthquake Discharge, Lava Plume next to it, Brutal Swing. Gets Facade is so big, and whatever the stabs can't hit, if there's like a Levitate guy or it goes flying, it's very deep coverage, move pool definitely can. I'm a little worried about its long-term performance, because it's not very hard to prep against base 50 speed Trick Room and Draft, either by bringing Room Service, or like you can just pick up a C tier that's below base 50, and those are usually ice types or fighting types, and they can fuck Ursaluna up. I don't really want to deal with that. Ursaluna being item locked to Flame Orb can maybe suck, or at least be a little boring, but that's a lot easier to manage with the help of Ursaluna's on-again, off-again girlfriend, Cresselia. That was my first pick and why I decided to run Dialga in the first place. We voted on this to go to S or not, and I have no idea why it didn't go up. It's not as strong numbers-wise as Porygon 2 or as versatile as Dusclops, but it's not glued to Eviolite unlike either of those, and having Super Life Dew is more than anything those guys can offer. Having a real game core, Cressluna, for cheap is super huge, and honestly it is kind of boring, but I don't know, it's cute. It's cute to get to pull that off. Reg D and Reg G, what do you know? So another guy I picked, like Cresselia, more or less just for being under-tiered, is Thunderasarian. But on the list of tiering injustices, it's like number 6 or number 7. It's not that bad. 145 special attack discharges. I get to do that next to Dialga. That's another benefit for telepathy. It's also, I get a bunch of benefits off of having 145 special attack Thunderbolts, like killing stuff. It's a little frail and it needs a choice item to get much done, but will manage. I also thought about switching off of this one, and I may after Miraidon week, but meh. We'll see. So, going into this draft, I had some takes. The first of them is that I think Snarl is going to be huge. And Persian is the fastest Snarl doesn't have something better to do, as in damage or Tailwind or whatever. And it's got a bunch of other support moves, right? Fake Out, Feint, Parting Shot, U-Turn, Outplay doesn't count. It's got Icy Wind. Okay, that's the list. I might have Encore. But I think I'm taking all of those support moves as a bonus for having a 140 defense, 115 speed Snarler. Most restricted are special attackers, and there's only really one Defiant or competitive Pokemon that's kind of worth a damn to pair with them, and that's Bisharp. The Psychic Restricteds are largely special. They want to have Bisharp. There's only one Bisharp. They want to a physical attacker. Great for me. And competitive Pokemon are the same deal. I would only really have to worry about Empoleon, who either no one got or I don't respect in the first place. And there is a little bit of anti-synergy in that being a fake-out guy and having Snarl does double incentivize Covert Cloak, which does suck, but I'll manage. And I don't really like this next pick, Chandelure. I got it like Thunder Etherian because it was under-tiered more than anything else, and I wanted to get that value. But Ice Rider, like, as a division, is hostile to Fire type, so I don't have too much faith in it. And, like, it does do what Dialga does to a certain extent, right? It sets Trick Room, it has a high special attack, it does do the fire move. But, like, I want to use it a lot differently, right? I want to be able to use it offensively. I want to be able to use it. I want to build it a little bit faster. I want to give it a Scarf because Dialga is really bulky. Sandy has 60, 95, 95. It's got a million more weaknesses. But it's 10 points slower, which I know I might have said already. But we're going to have to figure out how to use Chandelure rather than its inherent goodness being appealing and omnipresent. So I just wanted to trade this out in free agency. I couldn't find anything better. If I do find something better, if someone makes a swap, I will probably switch off of it. But I don't want to, just because I don't want anyone else to have it. So this doesn't work in the order I decided to present it. But I wanted to present Tauros right after Alolan Persian, because you get Intimidated after Fake Out. That's intuitive. You think about Incineroar, you love Incineroar. But after Chandelure, it doesn't really make any sense. But if Persian covers every special restricted, then I need Tauros to cover the physical ones. I always wanted to see what Tauros was about. It always seemed very good from the outside, but I've never used it myself. And I decided this is the chance now. It's got Wave Crash and Close Combat, so it can kill stuff while making the other stuff not kill my stuff with Intimidate. I got Aqua Jet for my excuse for priority. I kind of don't like that it doesn't have any special, like any status moves. No Wisp, which why would it get? But doesn't have like Taunt or anything, which I guess I wanted to kill stuff, so I don't care. But I turned Iron Hand into a human, and Hariyama was a result. It had the same speed as Ursaluna, which is kind of sad, but getting a Fake Out plus Crest Lead that can also kill stuff at Trick Room, as opposed to Alolan Persian, who would have to, it would be very fast, very slow under Trick Room, which I don't want, and it couldn't do any damage. Crest can't do any damage. Hariyama getting Fake Out that can kill stuff is good enough for me. It's funny that this has Guts, just like Ursaluna. I hope someone ever worries where the Flame Orb is, because I don't think I'll ever bring Flame us. She's got Wife Guard, even though, because she wants to using Wife Guard Cresselia, so I can set up Trick Room, but Cresselia is Ursaluna's wife, so I don't really know how that works. I guess it's a general protection for all wives rather than your specific wife, so well, hopefully that's a concept that we can explore further in this season. And then we're getting into the C tiers, which are kind of the boring, and this is where the exciting part stops. Like Noivern, who didn't get promoted again for whatever reason. This is my secret golden goose, so I'll just keep picking over and over again, I guess. It's got Frisk, it's fast, it's got Draco Meteor, it's got Boom Burst, it's got Taunt, it's got everything you want. With this, I become a Tail Room team rather than just a Room team. It doesn't share any weaknesses with Dialga, so it's a decent partner for it. Can also Boom Burst next to it, should I so desire. Yeah, Noivern's just great. I don't know. I don't know why you would never promote this. The Ice weakness doesn't matter. There are no ice types. There aren't any good ice types. The ice types with Ice Shard are really bad. Some of them are really weak and can't even kill Noivern. There's like Weavile, who's faster than it already, and Mamoswine, who you don't really need to set Tailwind against. It depends on the rest of the team. Every Mamoswine team I faced has had Tailwind that's Prankster, so I don't even want to bother. Every Mamoswine team that I've seen, really. It's so, I don't know. I just don't think the ice weakness matters on Noivern. If you set Tailwind and it gets Ice Beam, then wow, you got a free switch in Tailwind. Good for you. Back on track. I'm not satisfied with just one Frisk. I need more information for that. So Sentret is also here. My second take for this league is that, like, after that Snarl thing, is that the better you do, the better finger is going to be the cheapest finger. And you just put a sash on it. It's a lot easier than usual to brute force past them, when they're like not Ogrepons. You know, an Ogrepon can live a hit, an Ogrepon can hurt you back. A Magmar, an Electabuzz can't really do that. The Fable even really can't do that too well. And Sentret at C tier, no resources. I'm always going to want to, I know I'm always going to have to sash it, where it's like, okay, maybe Magmar, Electabuzz will sometimes do it, and Clefable does have the typing to not do it, but like for Magmortar, Electivire, Pachirisu, Furret, you always wanted to, you're always going to want to sash it, and I think at that point, you can get more interesting utility. I think Elekid might be better than the other two, than Pachirisu and Furret because of its moveset. And at least for me right here, Sentret is the best finger for me because of that 20 speed. So I can set up next to it, and it doesn't become useless under Trick Room because it has Endeavor. You go down to 1 HP. If you kill it, I get a free switch. If you don't kill it, I have damage. And obviously, if you do neither and like set up in front of me while I set Trick Room, I can do Super Fang, or like I think even Endeavor is good enough for is as good as a Super Fang too. I also got knockoff, so very good pick. I'm very excited to use this Sentret. And then the pick I'm least excited to use is the last one. I just needed to get something between 80 and 50 speed that wasn't weak to Ice, Flying, Dragon, or Fairy. Also fighting, but when I remove Sentret from my type chart when I do this, because it's got a sash, so it doesn't really, and it's sash into stats or shit, so its defensive typing doesn't matter. But I do add a Ghost immunity, because it is immune to Ghost and does have a finger. So that's my little tier cheat for Sentret, if any Sentret fans are watching. But basically, I was told to get Toxtricity for the first idea, which I did like, because I could Boom Burst next to Dialga and whatever. I already have Thunderous, and I didn't want a second 4 times weakness, even if Noivern's Ice weakness is kind of fake. So I swapped up to Glaceon. It gets me some Bolt Beam with Thunderous, even if both of them being special attackers does kind of suck. I wish I could have gotten a Alolan Sand Slash, or really just any physical attacker. But someone already got Sand Slash, and I couldn't find any that made my type chart happy. So I didn't do that. I'll stop kowtowing to my type chart overlord at some point. But yeah, hopefully I'll get to bring this once. I don't really know when I'll ever will, but 130 special attack can work in Trick Room. I can figure something out. So that's the end of the boring part that you probably didn't watch. I haven't thought of a conclusion or a little reward for my loyal fans, so you're gonna have to wait for next time. But it's power ranking times. I'm gonna go through them: Ice Rider, then Shadow Rider, then Ice Rider again, which is maybe a little intuitive or even just ugly, but I'm going to timestamp everything. I'll tell everyone where their placements are, so you're not going to watch the whole thing. You're going to skip to you and then not tell me about it. So you'll live. But I said the word "but" a second ago, and that was me pausing to get a drink. Fix my throat, thinking I'll finish my sentence and it'll be really smooth. But once you get really used to the English language, ending sentences with "but" is actually one of the hardest things you can do, because then you have to think of an exception. And that's really hard when you don't remember what you were talking about. And that's your blooper to my loyal fans. So the number 12 worst draft on Ice Rider is me. Is the self-deprecating bit still funny? I don't think so, because I haven't really disclosed most of my secrets like I did last time. I think because Dialga is so boring, I have to keep them under wraps. I think I'm on the bottom half of the top half in terms of power. My draft is too obviously first or second pick to be that bad. But my only physical attacker that can do something out of Trick Room is Tauros, and Shady kind of does the same thing as Thunderous and Dialga, and Thunderous is kind of on its own. Glaceon is sort of a wasted spot. Onto a real number 12 team is Pineapple Pirate. This is the Mono Water team. There's nothing else for me to say here. It's funny they got Milotic instead of Azumarill. They went top to bottoms, and Azumarill was definitely available for them to pick. And they didn't get the B tier Kingdra, which I didn't even notice was demoted. I don't even know if I would have said something about it, but that was there. Bruxus is going to be the MVP of the team. It'll be able to Choice Scarf Bruxus, Icy Wind, and Mystic Water, Choice Specs, Water Spout, Kyogre. It's with at least one set win, but probably not two. Now, the real bottom spot for Ice Rider is Nikki. This is a rare team that isn't built around the restricted, and not in a good way. It's built around this sand, beat-up Terrakion thing. It looks like it's a Reg G adaptation of that Reg H Lil winning team, and fitting that motif, this team kind of wishes Indeedee was a boy, so the sand mode could get some damage out of its priority blocking, but Mewtwo needs Indeedee girl for the finger. and is sitting around wishing Sand would stop taking one of its 5 hit points away every turn. You have to play around your own team to get the most out of Sand and Side Spam, because you don't want to bring Indeedee and Hippopotas to the same game, and Weavile and Blitzhinder's priority sort of sucks under Psychic Terrain. I do like the Hippopotas plus Restricted idea still a lot, because Hippo can go full bulk and Physio Yawn everything. I think it has better bulk than its mother with an Eviolite, but I haven't checked. I just don't think that kind of strategy is a good idea for Mewtwo. Have your fun with the little guy, it'll work out. I would ditch one of the slow fairies for Reuniclus to get a Trick Room Side Spam mode, plus Overcoat won't have any anti-synergy with Sand, and then, maybe turn the Fletchinder into a Drifblim too. Leading Indeedee, Drifblim is really uncomfortable, but if you can Wisp or Strength Sap stuff, that'll be better for Mewtwo than whatever Fletchinder can do, probably. I guess you can still Earthquake next to it with Excadrill. The second pick, Aux. He's the second pick of Shadow Rider, and he kind of looks like he was stuck somewhere in the middle. This team overcommits to Snow a lot. There's no need for Glaceon when you have Kyurem, and there's no need for Titan when you have Prankster Tailwind. This seems like it'll have a lot of problems with Murkrow and Tailwind, both being necessary to the team's function, but too passive individually to want to bring to the same game. Icy Wind won't do the job for speed control, and at base 109, it probably won't. You basically have to start the game on turn 2. Get Tailwind or Snow turn 1, switch out, get the other thing turn 2. And that is if you want to Blizzard spam. Draft usually isn't that simple, but just as an example. Nothing else really speaks to me. I don't get picking Palmot out of all of the Electric types in A for your Bolt Beam combo, especially when you got Tauros Fire later on for Ice Fighting, so Palmot's secondary topping suddenly stops being valuable. The Steel Dragon Fairy Core with Bisharp and Fizz is okay, hope you get the Toxic Stall under Veil. And with how this team's built now, I don't think you need Prankster Tailwind. Everything's pretty fat and strong, and would get more value out of an Aurora Veil than Tailwind. It's Palmot and Murkrow for 2 somethings with attacking stats over 120, and if you still want speed control, turn Glaceon into Electrode or a Jolteon. You could also condense Murkrow and Alolan Ninetales into a Tornadus if you think Manual Snow is funny. It's still probably the same start the game on turn 2 problem, but you don't have to switch. You get to pick which one you want on turn 1. I think that would be easier. I think it could even be more fun. Moving on. Another Weather Team Doom Dragon. A lot of people complain about getting sniped. But usually it's kind of hard to tell that they did. You can't see someone's vision and go, oh, they obviously want a Tinkaton. Oh, they obviously want a Magmar here, because everyone wants those. But Weather Teams, you can always tell when they get sniped, and this looked like this got sniped. It had to compete in the Sun War with last pick, so that was always a losing battle, and it, of course, came out on the losing end. They got Walking Wake at least, but I feel like on a Koraidon team, you'd rather have had Charizard than a second Dragon, and I think that's the big problem here, where it's very built around Groudon instead of Koraidon. There's a lot of defensive support like Screens Morgrem, Coaching Riolu, and Triple Fake Out that feel like they would be better spent on a Restricted that doesn't need a pony whenever it attacks. There's not really a type core to support Koraidon offensively or defensively. For Willpower, the Psychic is Sash Bound, which isn't that bad. Flutter is usually sashed on Koraidon too, but Flutter isn't walled by Steals. Flutter gets speed control. I guess Sleep Powder is kind of speed control, but it's not as good as Icy Wind. Yeah, I'll stand by that. I'll stand by that opinion. For Koraidon, Icy Wind is better than Sleep Powder. And the Dark type is a do-nothing screen setter, and screens don't reduce the recoil damage from your Flare Blitz. And if you close combat, then your screens go away. And I guess you want a Collision Course, but if you do Life Orb close combat, you want Life Orb close combat. The Fantasy Core is fulfilled by Tinkaton though, and she does gel with Groudon pretty well defensively, but I am worried about her low damage output. And the damage output is another problem. Besides Wake and a well-played Ditto, the offense suffers from poor speed control and having multiple 4-times weaknesses. Executor Bug, Moltres Rock, Magnezone. Next Magnezone has 30, and so does Sui and Avalugg, so maybe those don't matter, but Magnezone does have the bulk to take a hit if it wanted to. And only one of those can hold a Sash. You might want to have the Sash on Ditto, and Koraidon will always need Terra, not just defensively, but offensively. And having triple NFEs and only one Eviolite is just miserable. I get that digging in C is kind of hard, but you only want to bring one Eviolite. You're making your team very easy to prep against. I would ditch Ditto for Monkey Dory. Monkey Dory is a great fast way to hit fairies, and Frisk Fake Out is very, very good. You get to find the cloak, so you don't have to get surprised blown up by, you don't get surprised blown up. If they Terra Ghost, they burn Terra, you can figure that out. And you can also help Cronon decide who to save as a Flare Blitz. If one of them is Banded, Scarfed, Assault Vest, you go, okay, that slot has to take a Flare Blitz, and so on. Now, I do like Eggy, because it's the strongest Chlorophyll guy, and that's very cool, but Shiftry probably does more. You'll have to live without Sleep Powder Auto Wind, sure, but Wisp, Snarl, and Tailwind I feel are much more helpful for Koraidon than that. And like after Monkey Dory frisks items, Shiftry can then knock them off. That's more useful in like a set play game 2, game 3 saying you get to lead, lead Koraidon, Monkey Dory, then lead Koraidon, Shiftry, pick out the valuable items, so on and so forth. I would then pick your favorite NFE to keep and then trade the others out for whatever's fully evolved and good. Probably Mismagius and Genshin. You could also get Vileplume if you still want the Sleep Powder. Very similar to Executor offensively and much better defensively. So, yeah. Vileplume is just better than Executor on this type of team. If you don't want to be in Trek Room and don't have size spam, you get like 5 speed less for 5 speed and 15 special attack less for like way more bulk. And coverage that's worth something. So yeah, get Vileplume. Anyway, Ellis. I want to watch this team play. I like the Ho-Oh balance idea. I want to see it pull off the Scrafty Regenerator pivoting core thing that I never could pull off with Tornadisarian and Season 6.5, but I'm just not sure what its win cons are. Ho-Oh just doesn't have the numbers, even with Chen Pao's help, to put as much pressure on the builder as other restricted or even some S tiers. Doubling up on fire with Ghosted with Hisui and Typhlosion seems a little weird to me, and having Swacky when Ho-Oh can't get any terrain recovery doesn't thrill me. But I do like the idea of Grassy Seed Ho-Oh, even if that probably is going to Sneasler most of the time. Sneasler, Wacky is not a good lead. Don't do that. Double Fake Out is not good. The double Fake Out on lead is not good. The defensive vibe I'm getting from the top 4 contrasts with like having multiple 4x weaknesses, and guys don't want to hold Sash. Chen Pao, Sneasler, Stony J, sometimes Crafty, sometimes Lockix, all love Sash. And I think that makes it a lot more fragile than it wants to be, especially with Sword of Ruin cutting into your friend's defenses. So hear me out. In this team, Chen Pao is worse than Stony J. They do very similar things. Both have their own Sash, unless you want to risk AV, and AV Bolt Beam that was pretty cool. And they have the same job of boosting Ho-Oh's damage, so you don't really want to run both on the same team. But Chen Pao likes guys with priority attacks. Ho-Oh does not have a priority attack. Chen Pao and Ho-Oh are both weak to Rock Slide, and that's like the only Rock Slide move that exists. The only Rock move that exists. And defense is the low stat Ho-Oh has to worry about, so having your defense dropped is pretty bad. And with all that considered, Stony J just seemed like the better partner. You got to wide guard the Rock Slides away. There's, if they want to hit you with a Rock move, they now have to Terra Blast Rock or hit a Stone Edge. And you get the same boost without the lower defenses, which even seems better for Regenerator. I would then swap Chen Pao out for Fluttermane, no bullshit. Stony J then gets to be a fake Chen Pao and a fake Chiyu, and you maintain the same high-end speed and damage that Chen Pao had. You don't want 3 ghosts though, so swap Hisui and Typhlosion out for Ether Thunderous. The Prankster one is better speed control. The Saren one can Volt Switch for the Regenerator thing. Maybe Iron Crown is good. You get to kill rocks, you get to steal that, then have to hold EVLA. I don't know. I'm just suggesting this mostly because I just don't know. Chen Pao's starting to just seem weird here. I guess Chen Pao Sneasler is kind of good, but they both want to hold Sash, and they both have 4x weaknesses. That sucks. I guess it's okay with Lockix, but it's more of the same. You're both Dark types, so. Moving on to number 9 is Sempra. I have the same take on Sempra's build as I did last season, where I don't really know what it's doing, and it doesn't matter because it'll skill diff anyway. There's a complete overdose on fire types, there's no water resists, and a good few 4x weaknesses. The Trick Room mode is super threatening, not even because of Calyrex Ice. A lot of guys under base 50 make it harder to come up with like some room service or power weight scheme. They'll actually let you beat Calyrex Ice Rider under Trick Room with one simple trick. I am less confident in the Tailwind Talonflame mode, and I don't think he is either because he wanted to trade the Talonflame away. It's not too hard to outspeed a base 50 under Tailwind with a Scarfer, and that's the speed range where most of the damage is at. Bisharp has priority, so it doesn't really care, and Hitmontop is weaker than Blaziken, who has speed boost, so it doesn't really need Tailwind that much in the first place. Blaziken is going to carry this team hard, just like it did in Season 6.5. Start coaching Calyrex Ice and click buttons, go, go, go. Do that to Bisharp too. I like the Pincurchin and Golem as bolt beam combos here. A sturdy Alolan that hits all the Supercell slams could be really good, ignoring the Galvanized stuff, and Pincurchin's frail, but not really weak. So that's cool if you're Trick Room in certain matchups, especially against Sun. I would change Talonflame to a Volbeat to cut down on your fire types, even though it's still a rock weak, so maybe that's not too good. But you would get to keep priority Tailwind. Your priority Tailwind would be unconditional. You would get some screens and weather utility, which I think this team could appreciate. And then swap Magmar or Vivillon for Brambleghast to kill waters and help the Tailwind mode a little bit more. Brambleghast still kind of sucks and could take a Sash from Blaziken, but if you need a grass, that's the best grass you've got, I think. Number 9 is Cat. Everything below Naked Zamazenta is good here. I just don't believe in the restricted. Unlike its close brother, Naked Zama has no fallback stab for good neutral damage, especially against Terra Ghost. Behemoth's Bath does about the same as Crunch, and you don't get walled by fairies in the process. You can run 3 attacks, I suppose, but that cuts into your utility a bit too much. You want Iron Defense or you want Wide Guard. I just feel like you can ignore this Zama most of the time, and compared to his sister Zacian, he doesn't really get as much value out of a free item slot. Lefties isn't better defensive value than getting to be a steel type. And Fistplate or Life Orb would just make your body presses either just a little bit stronger than Crowned, and you're not a steel type. This doesn't matter if you Terra, I suppose, but then you're more of a Terra hog than Zacian Crowned. I just still don't like it. Anyway, the problem of Naked Zama having to choose between hitting ghosts or hitting fairies wouldn't be that bad. I guess did I remember to say that? Yeah, I did. If you run body press and crit, you get walled by fairies, if I forgot to say that. That problem wouldn't be too bad on its own if the rest of the team didn't also hate Terra Ghost, especially Mousehold and Blaziken. Just only 2 ways to hit it, neutrally, which I guess Ghost is a good defensive Terra, so that's kind of hard to hold against the team. But Golden Go and Butt Dog are good answers to that, although Butt Dog is a bit frail. Time will tell if Golden Go gets beaten hard by restricted or not. I think it's still good. The speed control is excellent. There's a lot of slow guys that aren't useless outside of Trick Room, and Tornus Saren is excellent speed control that you might not even need because Zama and Blaziken are so fast anyway. I would still want to trade Exeggutor out for a better Trick Room setter. Maybe Malamar is another ghost answer. Rabska also seems fine. And then turn Rotom Frost into a grass if you want a grass type still. Number 8 is Yoshi. I like that this team isn't afraid to run a low tier snow setter, but it does seem to want 3 different Pokemon next to Kyurem at once. Vulpix, Clefairy, or Stony J, and Chiyu. And if the revolving door of whatever's next to Kyurem can keep going, that'll do more than well enough, but I don't think anyone will agree to target the support over and over and over. That said, this is one of the more self-sufficient teams outside of the restricted, which isn't a bad thing. Chiyu Iron Valiant is discount Flutterfish, and Chiyu Darkspawn will probably be good against physical restricteds. Staraptor is cool too. I think its damage is going to become a little less valuable because you want to put Reckless on it, and I don't think you can afford to run Reckless against the physical restricted. So yeah, I do worry it really only has the Kyurem or Chiyu plus someone else mode, but those pieces are good enough on their own merits. I don't think it'll be that big a deal. I'd trade Stony J out for a stronger Trick Room Sweeper, so you can use Glowking for something other than resetting Draco Drafts, but Stony J does give Glowking a real special attack stat, so, whatever, maybe it's good. And there's no Wide Guard otherwise, I don't think. You have Iron Valiant, you don't need Stony J for a Wide Guard. But yeah, ditch him. Number 8 is Mario. It feels wrong putting another Dialga this low, especially when it looks so similar to my team, which is entirely incidental. He was running a Rayquaza team before switching off the Dialga in free agency. The Steel Dragon Fairy Core and 2 Mons with Dialga and Clefable is very good, and all the support pieces are worth using outside of what box they check off. Damage is excellent throughout the board, although, like my team, it is a bit unbalanced between physical and special. I'm not sure why Blursa was chosen over Hersa. Here, I guess Deer's Quick Synergy didn't seem fun, or you want to run Guts Hariyama a lot. The only bullet point I really have against this, and it's a very, very huge bullet point, is that the speed tiers are super awkward. Nothing above base 100, but nothing below base 50. So it feels forced to do Tailwind or Trick Room, and both are kinda eh. You could do a lot better than Dialga if you want to have a restricted and Tailwind. It doesn't really have a special signature move. It's only single target. A Tailwind Blood Moon or Saluna is kind of just more Dialga. It does have a spread move. It can, it can use Draco without having to lower its special attack twice, but we kind of know how to beat. So we kind of know how to beat Blood Moon and Blood Moon and Tailwind by now. The Clef Dialga Hariyama Blood Moon core is good for Trick Room definitely, but it might be a little predictable and lacking in utility against more complex anti-Trick Room measures, or like just something with high special defense that also has an Assault Vest on. I still just want to see another Dialga play, and I hope you do well with it. Now we get into the Calyrex Shadow Riders. I'll just say now, they're both back-to-back, and they're both kind of hard to rate. I feel like I have to say a lot of bad stuff about them, because Calyrex Shadow Rider with multiple fingers that gets to have the optimal Terra every time you can sleep your way to playoffs. You don't have to try that. My gripe with both of these teams is that they both fall into the same Galarian Weezing pitfall and overload on support. Neutralizing gas isn't a big deal when half the restrict is an Ice Rider, which I wrote for Squirtle, and then I choose that. I think it's also true for Shadow Rider too. I think, but half the restrictors in both divisions don't have abilities. It's a little better in Shadow Rider because you have a crowned Zacian and Zamazenta. Anyway, a lot of restricteds don't have abilities that hurt to lose, and for the ones that do, it's not that big a deal since this team doesn't have Intimidate in the first place. Oh wait, no, Sunstorm is an Ice Rider. I fumbled my own sentence for no goddamn reason. Whatever. Anyway, since this team doesn't have Intimidate, it doesn't all of the physical restrictors are prepared to run Clear Amulet against you anyway. So you're only hurting the one Miraidon, because the Miraidon goes, oh, I'll just run Ability Shield. That's my Clear Amulet for this matchup. That's fine, who cares? Galarian Weezing isn't good enough support on its own when you have advanced and notice that it's coming. Now, Stonestorm has won his first match already with an Assault Vest Geezing, and with physical too. And whether you want to take that as an indicator, he'll have to dig very deep to get any use out of it, or that, which is bad for it going forward, or that it's much better than I think, and that's a good thing going forward. I'll let you decide. I was also going to criticize Toadscruel Geezing, but when losing the Weezing isn't that big a deal for Calyrex, it's much better than I thought if you're willing to use Terra on Toadscruel. I think it's good for Calyrex Shadow to have a mode in the front that, that lets you soften the other guy up, and then Calyrex gets to come in and sweep. I think this is better than Weezing Gigas, because if Gigas dies, Toadscruel isn't useless, it gets Reed Powder. I'm conflicted on the Moltres Galar because it looks like a worse CSR in every way, right? 10 times less damage, 10 times worse as a setup sweeper, but Calyrex does want a good dark type, and there are very, very few good ones available in the higher tiers. Goltree is basically the only bulky dark available when, for Stonestorm, when he picked it. My worry is that Calyrex will go down, it will die, and then the team will have no damage and just fall over. Creative use of Weezing offensively and using the C tiers very well defensively can prevent that, though. I think this team needs to replace one of its fingers with a fighting type, either ditch the Weezing mode for Great Tusk or trade Electivire for Cobalion. Sorry that this one has been so scattered because I forgot what I was saying twice, but, Moving on to Squirtle. The Shadow Riders are right next to each other, you already knew that. This is a psyop to hoard all the fingers to artificially lower the power level of Shadow Rider. I don't really think it's going to work out, though. A lot of my complaints echo what I had to say about Stonestorm, mostly in regards to Weezing being bad, but the Redirector hoarding is a rare case of more not being more. You're never going to want to bring more than 2 Redirectors to a game, so prep against you becomes really linear. Bring a spread move to circumvent the fingers, bring some bulky Taunter, and that's 3, maybe 4 out of 11 threats handled. This finger overload makes Tinkaton's Fake Out support not seem very valuable either. I don't like the Gigas thing. It's the only Pokemon in the game who doesn't get any better next to a Redirector, and having so many Redirectors is this team's thing, in capital letters. I get that, it's your Cali-S Dozo, knockoff, but, in reverse, you lead those two and have Calyrex in the back, but I guess that's all you need to muscle through something at draft power level, but I have a lot of doubts. You kill Weezing and Regigigas is just useless. And, your Redirectors don't help it, so you have to bring Tinkaton or Tauros in the back because you don't really want to bring Rhydon. I guess you could have Fletchinder. And, I have the same issue as I did with Stonestorm, where I think Calyrex dies and the whole team will just follow her. I think other top restricteds have circumvented that, and it's not a unique Calyrex Shadow problem. Maybe it is. I still, I have to say a bunch of bad stuff to balance out that it's literally Calyrex Shadow Rider. I haven't mentioned the Priority Tailwind, but Priority Tailwind is a big plus over Stonestorm's team. And you don't have any other Evioliters, not that Flixinder really wants to hold Eviolite. I would offer Ferret and Pachirisu up for sale to all of the bidders in Shadow Rider. I'm sure some will take you up on the offer and turn their Gigas into a Baxcalibur because you don't have a Dragon currently. You need one. Number 6, getting into the top halves now, is Downfall. Now this team is very cute to me. It's doing like a Fire, Water, Grass balance thing with Miraidon. It's a better pretend Radiant Bolt. And Miraidon needs no introduction. It's extremely difficult to prep against. The basic spec set is, insane, and the flexibility of draft allowing you to run like Magnet or Assault Vest without throwing makes it the strongest restricted by far in draft. Assuming you turn Miraidon into the best Fairy, Water, or Grass type in the game immediately, Raichu's type double with Miraidon, make it a premium rather than discount Sneasler. I think its support is much better suited for Miraidon, and I admire Downfall's restraint in only getting 2 terrain abusers, the Raichu and the Iron Leaves. Unfortunately, this is the team that my opinion on has fallen the most. There are so many 4x weaknesses. 5 out of the 11 guys on this team have one. They're important guys too. They're not just the C tiers. Both Intimidators, Hark and Strafty, and your Paradox Iron Leaves. It's going for the noble skill diff goal of Volt Switch pivoting around everywhere, and while yes, you do get to pick what the switch-in will take, more or less, but a lot of those guys' 4x weaknesses overlap with Miraidon's. Hark and Ground weakness, Hydrapple and Ice weakness, Drafty and Fairy weakness. That makes it seem pretty easy to dismantle. It's also a really slow team with 3 under 50s and 2 under 70s, but it doesn't have anyone that can set Trick Room, and the speed control from Raichu can be negated with Covert Cloak. Electroweb and Nuzzle, you both don't get paralyzed. Unless you feel like running T-Wave, I don't really think you want to do that. So this needs a Trick Room setter immediately. I'd get rid of Hark for Klefki. I think Sprains could be nice here, and you have Scrafty for Intimidate already, so Hark's less valuable. Alafin is a lot of physical damage anyway. And then trade Hydrapple for Magmortar to get rid of 1 4x weaknesses, and so you can still have a Fire type, and you would gain a Finger. This team is also lacking a Finger. I would also trade Sandslash Alola to me, so I can have it, for the reason that I want it. Number 6 is Mikey. I've grown to like this team more and more, even if I think my core issues with it haven't changed. I like the Chris Heatran mode. You can soften the other guys up with your bulky guys, and then you would, Heatran Magma Storms and traps everything, Cresselia heals it up, and then Rayquaza E-Speed cleans up while everything's at half health. Since E-Speed is at priority, even if you get beaten up inside your own Trick Room, you're not really screwed, and I love that. But besides that, I don't know if Rayquaza really fits here. It looks like a lot of defensive support trying to fix Rayquaza's shitty defenses, but I don't think that's the right approach. Bacon and Lunar Blessing all seem worse than a Finger for Rayquaza. Reduced damage is more than no damage, and with Rayquaza's bulk, it would much prefer to take no damage. The Tailwind kind of seems like a waste on +2 Terra Normally Speed guy. It is coming from Suicune, who, it's kind of reductive to just say Suicune's a Tailwind setter, but, I think you need to ditch the Sceptile for Hydrapple. Super Sweet Syrup Magma Storm plus Yawn gives you a shitty Tingdozo, and while I do criticize a bunch of teams for having too many 4x weaknesses, how well Heatran covers Ice and how well Rayquaza and Hydrapple cover Ground to make it one of the more palatable 4x weaknesses to double up on. Then ditch like more Grammar Luxury for Jolteon, so you can have faster speed control if your Suicune still keeps getting taunted. I worry about that getting taunted a lot. I'm still tempted to say Zekrom or Necrozma Duskmane could make better use of the tools here. They're both bulkier than Rayquaza, they both do about the same damage, but I like the concept of Extreme Speed under Trick Room so much that even if Rayquaza is worse, I hope you hold on to it. Now into the top 5, which is a marginally better spot to be in than the top half. This is another rare team that isn't built around the restricted. It differs a lot from Ellis's more balanced take on Ho-Oh, by having Ho-Oh be more of a tangentially stronger piece among a gang of 4 burly A tiers that get lost on the way that pass. The only member of this team I don't like in a vacuum is Blastoise, and even that gets Life Dew, which is very good. This can be pure hyper offense. Sash Sneasler, Backsclave Rush, and I don't know, Specs Gold, pump you full of numbers, and then die. But the natural bulk is still there to be passive and play setup if necessary. A lot of things can set up. Ho-Oh, kind of. Sneasler, kind of. And then Bastiodon, Goldango, Bax, all can. Especially with the help of Maushold and Thundurus. I do criticize that this team doesn't seem to support Ho-Oh all that well. Maushold and Thundurus still can, but it's not really a high bar to clear to be able to be supported by Maushold and Thundurus, so yeah. However, this team is reliant on Scarf Electroweb from Rotom Mo or Prankster Scaryface / T-Wave to get speed control. This may mean it has a hard time against physical restricteds. That Crocodile is already forcing the Clear Amulet if you don't want to gamble on the T-Wave mischance, and you might have some difficulty against some well-placed Intimidate or Snarl. There's a lot of physical attackers here. You can only have one Clear Amulet. Snarl isn't that good into you, but, you know, you don't really want to put Covert Cloak on Goldango, I don't think. I would still say to trade Ho-Oh out for Reshiram or Zekrom and then replace Bax with something else. But with the team's relatively low special defense, maybe I'm wrong on Ho-Oh's best on slot, time will tell. Number 5 is, for Shadow, is Lloyd. I love that everything on this team is like fringed Reg G or Reg H usage, and also Oricorio is here to do Como Dancer bullshit. This is the top tier restricted team that's tier cheated the most, getting the most B+ or C+ picks of the bunch. This does read like a skill diff team though. It suffers from multiple 4x weaknesses and only really has Zacian and Chandelure for damage. But if Ditto copies are restricted or if Como gets set up, those problems do go away. Vision stabs do account for the 4x weaknesses that Bastiodon has to ground, Como has to fighting, and I guess Bastiodon also has for fairy, for fighting, so not redundant. She can't do anything against coverage moves, especially coverage Dazzling Gleam, so, but Fairy Steel is good enough typing that you probably don't have to terrorization all that much. I was a big proponent of Zacian Crown before the draft, but seeing how much Intimidate has been prioritized does make me lose a little bit of faith. And while my initial opinion was that the Steel type was so helpful to overall team building that it was worth no item slot, I'm a little less sure now. I'm very excited to watch this play though. I don't think it really needs any trades, but I don't like Oricorio and Toxicroak. It might be better served by a fake out or a Coachier without a 4x weakness. Or 4, Ice is Jade. The vibes of this are good. Much like Chris, the only pick I don't like in a vacuum is Caparaja. The big cool thing I see is that min speed Palkia underspeeds no investment based 75s, which isn't that good, but it's made up for by outspeeding everything under 120 in Tailwind. You can fudge those numbers a bit to suit the week, and your Tailwind Tail rooms should be more versatile than most. Something's not really clicking for me here though, and I'm not sure what it is. I want to say damage is low outside Palkia, but that feels wrong with a hand that can run CC whenever it wants. You know, Sash Salazzle overheats and acid sprays are very good. The Mimikyu is basically sashed every week. I also want to say it might be a little too reliant on speed control, but you can run Salazzle, Palkia, Iron Hands +1 every week and you should be just fine. So, yeah. I don't like the Wo-Chan here. I feel like you'll have to play around it more often than not, especially since you have Intimidate already. So I ditched the Wo-Chan for Iron Boulder. I still think this needs some fast damage, even if it's not reliant, even if I'm wrong and it's not reliant on speed control. You know, it doesn't have to set up. You can hit stuff through Protect. You don't really have a ground type, but you do get like a rock fighting speed sandwich with Iron Hands. That's pretty cool. Number 4, Shadow is Omega. You can judge this one by its cover. I thought Dongwings should have been promoted to the top tier before this season, and I'm glad I'm not in division enough to find out why. Double Redirector with Fungus is good, and it mitigates a weakness I see with Berserker being the only member at or below 50 speed in a team that seems so reliant on Trick-Room. And speaking of Berserker, I think it's going to carry this team. With Tough Claw, there's Steely Spirit, boosted Iron Heads. Like, if it gets its paws on a Life Orb or Iron Plate, it can be a very good sweeper. I used Thorns on Side Spam to win in Season 5, so shout out to her. The type chat is where I'm most afraid. 3 Pokemon with 4x weaknesses, Stealth Mane Dark, Hydreigon Fairy, Iron Thorns Ground, and like, so many of the high tiers being weak to Dark is really concerning. No Wide Guard and there's a very pronounced weakness to Snarl, especially since Hydreigon gets Snap Drive by that, and that's supposed to be your Dark resist. So it kind of feels like a waste to run Covert Cloak on anything in Side Spam. Besides Hydra, again, I'm not sure if Rabombi and Embor will be bulky enough to actually serve as Dark Resist. Not that they can't take a Dark hit, but that they can't take another hit. And I don't really know why Metagross is here. I just don't like Metagross. I'd fish Gallade out of the trash, replace Metagross with it, and then get rid of Clawitzer for like in Rock Dusk or some other fast physical attacker. Both of those would help your Tailwind mode a bit, help you against Darks a bit, give you Wide Guard, so on and so forth. Gallade is a little boring, so again, not wanting to run it though. Number 3 is Scaredy. Now Scaredy is VTSDL's Nepo baby, and I am his rich single mom. He's going to get the playoffs or die trying. My round 1 is Sempra, and I've put 3 times as much thought into his team than I have for mine. Like prepping with him against his first matchup than I have like thought about my game at all. My game is in like 4 hours, and I'm recording this instead of building. Now, there isn't anything to say about this team that you don't know from looking at it. It's got the 2 best Sun pieces, Jumpluff and Charizard, and it's got an assortment of high BST shitters that can tear through whatever it needs to. A lot of these guys can be Earthquake next to, so he doesn't have to gamble on Precipice Blade, which I think is great. The only thing he really got sniped on was Walking Wake, and I feel like Latios might just have been better anyway. Spiritomb, Stab, Foul Play, Dark Neutrality, and Psychic Immunity give it a big boost in viability for restricted format, I feel. And while it doesn't give Groudon much specific support, it'll more than do whenever Groudon wants Trick Room. He already thinks Bastiodon is ugly, so I told him to get Probopass and totally tricked him. Arcanine might kinda suck, and the C-tiers of Berserker and Ambipom might not be the best, but you don't keep a Berserk and his Puck separated. I probably overrate Draft Sun, at least when it's automatic. But a top tier restricted, having access to all its best tools for cheap feels like it deserves, one of the highest spots. And there's only one Prankster Weather and Ice Rider, and Scaredy dodges that matchup, so, relatively, he will do very well into just about everything. Number 3 is Perry. I think this is the season where they figures it out. Probably because it's the season to stop listening to me, because I don't think any specific team building advice I've ever given them has helped. All of what I said about Miraidon when I got the downfall applies here too, less talking for me to do. Miraidon super busted, Spec Set is intense builder pressure, and you're not forced to run that, so it's the best guy ever. Electro Seed Cobalion as a fake Zamazenta is better than any of the Proto guys, and the Proto guys are real good. This is super duper offensive, which I feel is Perry's specialty. You can trade a bunch with Iron Moss and Iron Leaves. The thing I said about Raichu Alola, where as long as we're on Terras, it's better than Sneasler. Mabosstiff, Dash Bun, Glasgow, Frosmoth Centrid, all pretty good supports. Gyarados might be better off as a Prankster bug, and there is a pronounced weakness under Trick Room, but Miraidon doesn't mind all too much as long as there's no ground types in the room with it, and 20 Speed Centrid will help with that anyway. Remember the traditional Chinese proverb, play lame, win games, and you should get the finals just fine. Number 2 is Mike Titan. In a few ways, this team looked like it would have preferred to be built around Zacian Crowned, but couldn't live without an S tier. All 3 of Zacian, Treads, and Draco. Wish they could be out all at once like a triple battle, which is a problem Zacian Crown doesn't really have, but Naked Zacian does have to make a decision to accomplish, not accomplice. Much the opposite of my opinion on Cat's team, where I don't believe in Naked Zama and the increase of item flexibility doesn't do much to sway me, the opposite is true of Naked Zacian. Kind of indecent when it's about her, it's kind of rude. She's gonna have to hold Clear Amulet almost every week, and that's gonna go a long way with her speed. That's like not a bad thing to get your re-choice band every turn, when Zacian and Crowned wouldn't get that. Reptos does cover that Intimidate weakness well anyway, if you ever decided that you didn't want the whole Clear Amulet, and having Bruxish for prior block speed control lets Zacian push as many buttons as he wants, not to mention how good the Bruxish Draco pairing can be. The damage output of this team is really good. It just can't really be measured in raw stats. It deals in high BP stabs or attack boosted on the label. I think it will do very well. It doesn't look as good defensively though, struggling with a few too many Sash holders. Mienshao, I think really just Mienshao, Gengar, and Persian. I think Thwacky and Zapdos Galar could also win it sometimes too. The slowest thing is base 65, makes it have a very bad Trick Room matchup. But Umbreon has been used in the real game as like anti-Trick Room, taunt, yawn stuff, so maybe that'll be fine. I don't think that'll be enough to keep it down anyway when Dragon Energy and +1 Life Orb play rough are on the table. My trade suggestion is just to hoard all your picks to make a full conversion to a Zetian Crown if it turns out that's a better plan. I don't know if it will be. I guess the Persian kind of sucks. I don't like the Persian. Number 2 is Blizzard. Hi, Blizzard. Hi. This is one where I helped, so I know all the tricks and gave out all my suggestions already, so I don't have much to say. Luckily, I can hear myself talk because I get to explain why I put closed Zama so far above naked Zama. Not having an item slot doesn't matter all too much when you just want lefties anyway, which I already said. Or like Citrus, I guess you can also want Citrus. Behemoth's Bash is a stab, will serve you well enough except Terra Ghost. Against like Gold and Chandelier, you both have to play. And the rest of the team is much better to equip with Ghosts, much better equipped to deal with Ghosts, which was my biggest complaint against Cat in the first place. Zama Latios is a real game duo, and I don't know why Latios got demoted down to A, but it's going to Draco everything. I love Crocodile. I love that Crocodile can Earthquake next to so many things, even if it might anti-synergize with Sneasel a little bit. Noivern is great, even if she doesn't like Noivern, because she's dumb, I guess. Mimikyu is here. I like Mimikyu. Mimikyu's kind of my friend. Moving on. Number 1 of Ice Rider is Quirt. This is the second time Quirt's hacked into my computer and stole my first draft of a draft. The first thing I put into the builder was Palgia, Thorina, Ironjug, Clefable, and Pelipper, which I scrapped because that's just a shitty Kyogre and I don't even like regular Kyogre. But once the restricteds were out, I spent a long time deciding on what Duskmane or Solgaleo team I should make before deciding against at the last minute. I was supplanted over Palkia to further my being hacked agenda. Now, before I praise this team, I want to lead with my big criticism. This Duskmane should just be a Solgaleo. The Trick Room mode here is weak outside of Duskmane. I don't think Swampert's good. I don't think Girder can cut it. And almost everyone in our division has Intimidate. It's going to be a real pain in your ass to have to clear emulate that Duskmane every week. If Palkia can run Trick Room at base 100, I'm sure Solgaleo can at base 97. And I've run the numbers. I promise Close Combat and Flare Blitz are worth not getting set up, especially if you get to run Life Orb and get held by Gouging Fire with no drawbacks. I have 2 tinier criticisms: that if you didn't have Intimidate, you could Breaking Swipe underprepared gamers and force clearing bell on overprepared ones. And like the Quillfish kind of sucks anyway, so maybe that'll happen. Also, why did you pick Meowstic F after they promoted her? That's really crazy to me. But this is really good. Alright, Jugulus and Thorina is a real game duo with synergy that doesn't really need explaining. Dark type for your Psychic type. Get your Snarl and Tailwinds here. Prio Block is also there. You know what Prio Block does. I don't really believe in the Crest, and the Clef, but you can't say no to Steel Dragon Fairy. The dragon is gouging. Is Aurora and Lilcuck's also good for obvious reasons. Just a lot of good on their faces pieces that work with each other well. He did lose round 1, so I kind of wish I worked sooner, because it would have been way funnier if I said he was number 1 and then he lost, other than saying he's not after he lost. Well, I guess it's still funny, but they seem like I'm not as good. I'm not very good at predictions, which I haven't even. I could probably go and check and see how my predictions did for the last draft, but I don't really feel like it. Swampert is kind of lame. I don't like Swampert. That's all I've got. That's all I've got, dude. Number 1 is Pigs. So after the glowing review of Quartz team, we have to get into the dark world of Dozo. I do not think Dozo and Tatsugiri should ever be in separate tiers. If there's 2 or more S tiers, put them both in there, and if there's 1 S tier, you should not be able to make Tetsu Dozo. Dozo's ability to stat check is much more pronounced than draft, and it takes more prep to beat Dozo than it does to play it. I just don't think that's a good balance. I don't think it's fun. I think that, we all hate the Dozo guy. There can just not be a Dozo guy. I can stop that. But let's assume I'm wrong, right? Why would that be? You do have to position Tatsugiri and Dondozo, as opposed to like Side Spam or Pound Knight. You could just lead your gimmick and do fine. And as an opportunity cost, what you put next to Dozo will probably be less powerful in a vacuum and not have its best supports, because you can't really running the Yawn. First Dozo isn't really that good with Tatsu Dozo, and that's all Dozo can support. And that support anyway might not be as powerful in a vacuum, because it won't have, tier-wise, it won't have its support, rather than just what Dozo can offer. I do not think that downside exists in Restricted Draft, because you have a big, fat-ass Restricted. Eternatus is just a super big, Lamara. That's you get your 145 special attack, 130 speed, meteor beams, kill something, leave that next to Dozo, swap it out if needed. You've got Zoroark too, so you can pretend it's a Dozo and double nuke something. Your cheesy Flamigo stuff, Dug Trio, Arena Trap actually seems super good here. And I just don't have much to say but complaining about Dozo for the nth time because there's not much to talk about. It's the Dozo team. I am hesitant to put it number 1 because I feel like it's leaning more towards the stall interpretation of Eternatus with the Wo-Chien and reaching so far down on the tiers as to get Grookey, rather than doing just Meteor Beam, blow you up, Choice Specs everything, die version. And I don't think that's even half as good. I mean, maybe it's more fun, but it's gonna suck. I would just trade Wo-Chien out for Talonflame or Illumise and trade Grookey for whatever C-tier finger is left over. And, then all my reservations about putting this at the top go away. Conclusion, these are the power rankings in a straight line. You can look at these as you will. I'll screenshot these for the draft to look at their own placings later. And that's the end of the conclusion. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, I'm more excited to watch other people play than to actually play myself on this one, just because I don't like restricted format very much. I think this will be a season for an underdog. I think Blizzard or Perry, or I guess there aren't that many underdogs in Writer, so not really a thing for them. So I don't know, maybe Nikki will surprise us. But that's it. My voice is really sore because I decided not to take a break in the middle of talking for half an hour, to get any water because I drank all my iced tea before I started. So goodbye. See you in 5 hours for my next video.